What if your faithful partner secretly marries someone else, while you are fighting between life and death? My name is Roman. I own a small computer shop in a quiet neighborhood. Every morning I unlock the shop, arrange the displays, and keep watch over the machines until evening. When I close and walk back to the house, life felt ordinary and steady. Routines, customers, and the steady hum of fans inside the computers I repaired and sold. At home I lived with my cousin. He left the house each morning with his bag and returned at dusk, tired but steady. Near our house lived Anna, a woman I had admired for a long time. She moved with a calm grace and smiled at me when we passed in the street. Over months, those small moments grew into something deeper in my heart. One evening, after saving enough and feeling certain, I finally approached her with a nervous hope. I asked Anna to marry me. She looked at me, eyes steady, and agreed. The wedding was simple and warm. After that day, the house felt different, brighter, as if the future had folded itself gently around us. We believed, without artifice, that our togetherness would last. The early days of our marriage were filled with laughter and light. Anna and I could hardly bear to be apart, even for a moment. We cooked together, walked in the evenings, and shared dreams of the future. My cousin often joked that our happiness was contagious, because even he felt lighter when he came home from his long day of teaching. Time passed quickly, and before we realized it, a year and a half had gone by. Our love only deepened during that time. There were no grand adventures or riches, yet every day together felt like a treasure. But because I owned a computer shop, there were times I had to travel far to buy stock. A major city, known for its large markets, was several hours away. The trip was demanding, but it kept the business alive. One morning, I explained to Anna that I needed to travel there to purchase computers. I would stay for a while with a friend and return once the job was done. She looked worried but nodded. "Call me whenever you miss me," I told her, promising she had nothing to fear. That night we sat together quietly, not realizing how fate was about to turn. The next morning, I woke early, kissed Anna on the forehead, and left in my car for the long journey. The road stretched endlessly, lined with trees and fields, and hours passed before I finally reached the city. I drove straight to my friend's house. He welcomed me warmly, gave me food, and together we set out to the marketplace to look for computers. I remember stepping out of the car, the sun beating down, the street crowded with trucks, cars, and vendors shouting. Just as I closed the door, a loud horn blared behind me. Before I could turn, a truck smashed into me. Pain exploded in my body, and everything went dark. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in a hospital bed. My other friend had pulled me from the road and rushed me there. Machines beeped around me. My legs and arms were wrapped in bandages. The doctors spoke in serious tones. I had suffered major injuries. They said I must remain in the hospital for 2 months before I could return home. I called Anna with trembling hands, assuring her I was alive. "Don't worry," I whispered. "I'll come back soon." Days turned into weeks as I lay in the hospital. The doctors were strict, visiting daily to check my wounds, reminding me that healing takes time. I felt trapped within those white walls, listening to the ticking clock, the shuffle of nurses, and the hum of machines. The pain was sharp at first, but slowly dulled into a constant ache. Anna called me every evening. Her voice brought comfort, softening the loneliness of those endless nights. She would ask about my meals, whether I was sleeping, and if I needed anything. I clung to her words like medicine, imagining her waiting for me at home. I believed in her loyalty without question. But unknown to me, a seed of betrayal had begun to grow in her heart. In my absence, while I fought to recover, she entertained another thought. Why not marry again? Perhaps she grew restless, perhaps greedy for more. I could never know. Whatever the reason, she decided to act. While I lay broken in a hospital bed, she sought out another man. She gave him what was meant to be mine alone, weaving a secret life behind my back. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Anna still called me regularly, asking about my health, laughing lightly at my jokes, and pretending to miss me. Her words painted the image of a faithful wife waiting at home. But behind those conversations, a darker reality was unfolding. She had already chosen another man. They met in secret, spending long hours together. And soon, she went further. She married him, breaking every vow she had made to me. I knew nothing. From my hospital bed, I trusted her completely. Each time I heard her voice, my heart felt steadier, as though recovery was only a matter of time. But my cousin began to notice things. Living in the same house, he realized Anna left at night and returned only in the morning. He grew suspicious and finally told me, "Roman, every night she goes somewhere. She doesn't return until dawn." I laughed it off at first, saying, She probably stays with a friend. Maybe she needs comfort while I'm away. My cousin frowned. What kind of friend keeps her until morning? Something is wrong. His words stirred doubt inside me. For the first time, I felt a shadow creep across the trust I had for my wife. The suspicion grew heavier in my mind. I tried to silence it, convincing myself that Anna loved me too much to betray me. But my cousin's words echoed again and again. Finally, I asked him to follow her and report everything he saw. Keep an eye on her until I recover, I said. He agreed. That night, after dinner, Anna dressed quietly and slipped out of the house. My cousin followed her at a safe distance. The streets were dim, shadows stretching across the pavement. She walked with quick steps until she reached a particular house. She paused outside, then made a phone call. Moments later, a man appeared at the door. He smiled, embraced her, and pulled her inside. My cousin, shocked but determined, crept around to the back window. What he saw through the glass shattered every illusion of loyalty. Anna and that man were together in the most intimate way. Between whispered words, they confessed to their love, saying they could not live without one another. They even spoke of being married now, as though I had never existed. When my cousin called me to report everything, my chest tightened. I could hardly breathe. My faith in her wavered for the first time. I held the phone tightly, listening to my cousin's voice, every word cutting like a blade. My mind refused to accept what he described. Anna, my wife, the woman I trusted with my heart, was living another life behind my back. The walls of the hospital seemed to close in on me. My heart raced, and a bitter taste filled my mouth. I wanted to believe there was some mistake, some misunderstanding. Yet the image of her in another man's arms haunted me. I pressed my face into my hands and cried silently, the sound drowned out by the machines in the room. My cousin's last words echoed. I saw it with my own eyes. The doctor entered later, reminding me I wasn't healed enough to leave, but his words meant nothing now. I could not lie in that bed while my wife betrayed me each night. The thought consumed me. That very evening, I decided I would not stay in the hospital another day. Ignoring the warnings of the doctors, I tore off the bandages, gathered my few belongings, and walked out into the night. My body was weak, but my determination was stronger. I needed to see the truth with my own eyes. The road back to my city felt longer than ever. Every bump of the car sent pain through my half-healed body, but I endured it. My mind was fixed on only one thing, the truth. By the time I reached home, night had already spread its silence over the streets. The lamps glowed faintly, and the air felt heavy. I called my cousin as soon as I arrived. My voice was firm despite the exhaustion. Show me the house where she goes at night. He hesitated, worried for my health, but finally agreed. Together we walked through the quiet streets until he pointed to a small house at the corner. We stopped in the shadows, watching. Moments later, I saw Anna with my own eyes. She knocked softly, and the same man appeared. They embraced, and the door closed behind them. My heart collapsed in that instant. Everything I had built my life on crumbled. It wasn't just betrayal, it was destruction. I wanted to scream, but no words came. I turned away, numb, and returned home. Inside, I collapsed onto the bed, my chest burning. Loneliness wrapped around me like a shroud. As I lay there, my body began to weaken, my blood pressure rising dangerously. The world went silent as my life slipped away. My body lay still on the bed, but Anna wasted no time. She pulled out her phone and dialed quickly. In a low, urgent voice, she told her second husband, "It's done. He's dead. Come quickly." Not long after, the man arrived. He looked at me once, then at her, and without hesitation, the two of them worked together. They lifted my lifeless body, carrying it out of the house under the cover of night. Every step they took was cold, calculated, and heartless. They drove far beyond the city, into a dark forest where no one would find me. The trees loomed tall, shadows swallowing the path. There, without ceremony, they threw my body onto the ground, as though I were nothing more than a broken object. Then they left, hand in hand, returning to their new life together. But death was not the end for me. My spirit lingered. I could not move on, bound to the house and to the betrayal that had destroyed me. Anger, grief, and the thirst for justice consumed me. I became something else. No longer a husband, no longer a man, but a restless spirit seeking revenge. 5 days passed after my death. The world outside moved on as if nothing had happened. But inside the house, my spirit stirred restlessly. I watched Anna and her new husband laugh, eat, and live together as though I had never existed. The betrayal burned hotter with every passing moment. I wandered the halls of the house, unseen but ever present. At times, I would make the windows rattle, or cause the floorboards to creak. But they dismissed these signs as tricks of the night. They thought they were safe, free to enjoy the life they had stolen from me. But my patience was gone. I no longer desired to merely watch. I craved retribution. The pain in my chest, the humiliation of betrayal, and the cruelty of being murdered by the woman I loved were too heavy to bear. On the fifth night, as Anna's husband left for work, I felt the moment had come. The house grew silent, the kind of silence that weighs on the soul. Anna was alone. I drew upon all the power of my rage and sorrow, waiting for the right instant to strike. That night the air felt colder than before. The lights flickered and then died, plunging the house into absolute darkness. Anna sat alone on the sofa, the room shrinking around her like a cage. At first she fumbled for her phone, hands trembling, but the battery showed no signal, and the quiet pressed in on her like a living thing. I moved through the darkness until I stood before her, not seen, but felt. The room seemed to warp. A chill wrapped itself around her spine. Panic rose in her veins. "No, this can't be true," she whispered, voice thin with terror. "A dead man can't come back." Her denial sounded like a fragile shield, but it could not hold. I let my presence swell until it filled the room. Objects shuddered. The curtains fluttered, though no wind moved. Anna's fear became a bright, frantic pulse that I fed upon. She stumbled to her feet, eyes wide, backing away until the wall stopped her. Her breaths came quick and shallow. Then, with a force born of all the pain I had suffered, I reached out with hands that were no longer flesh but will. The moment I touched her, she cried out once, a raw, impossible sound. In that second the betrayal, the hurt, and the rage poured through me, and I claimed what had been taken. When the scream ended, the room was still again. Anna's life had been cut short by the wrath she had kindled. The house exhaled, empty and altered, as if a long, terrible chapter had finally closed. Anna's body crumpled lifelessly to the floor, her eyes frozen wide with terror. The silence afterward was deeper than any quiet I had ever known. I stood over her, my spirit trembling, not with weakness, but with the satisfaction of vengeance. For the first time since my death, I felt the weight on my chest loosen. But revenge was not fully complete. The man who had taken my place, the second husband, the thief of my life, was still alive. He had aided Anna in my betrayal, in my murder, and in discarding my body like waste in the forest. He too deserved to feel the weight of my wrath. When he returned home from work that night, whistling softly and unaware of the darkness waiting inside, he opened the door to a scene of horror. His wife's lifeless body lay sprawled on the floor, her face pale and twisted in fear. He froze, the color draining from his face. His breath hitched as he realized what must have happened. Before I could reveal myself, he turned and fled, stumbling out of the house in terror. He did not stop to gather his belongings, nor to bury her. He left the city that night, vowing never to return. My vengeance was complete. The next days were a strange blur. The house felt hollow, as if someone had removed its center of gravity. Neighbors whispered behind curtains. News spread like a slow, hungry fire. People came to ask questions, to point fingers, to speculate. My cousin stood quiet at the edge of every conversation, eyes hollow, carrying a secret weight he could not easily shrug off. He had watched the betrayal unfold, and had watched me die. And now he had watched the aftermath of that betrayal. I drifted through rooms and heard them talk about funerals and investigations. They searched the forest where they had thrown my body. Men with flashlights and grave faces tramped through the undergrowth but found nothing. It was as if I had simply vanished from the earth. The police scratched their heads and took statements, but their questions never reached the truth. My cousin answered with a trembling voice, telling half-truths to protect himself, and perhaps to protect my memory. People spoke of curses and restless spirits. Old women crossed themselves and left offerings at the doorstep. From within that silence, I watched my cousin more than anyone else. Guilt carved lines into his face. He loved me in his quiet way, and now he carried the knowledge of my murder. I wanted to speak to him, to comfort him, to tell him that he had done his best. But I could not touch him. I could only follow, a shadow pressed to his heels, feeling the ache of everything left undone. Investigations dragged on, slow and fumbling. Detectives visited twice, then thrice, asking the same questions in different voices. They catalogued the house, pressed their flashlights into dark corners, and photographed the same floor where Anna had fallen. The absence of my body puzzled them. They treated my disappearance like a mystery to be solved, not a wound to be healed. Each unanswered question was a new echo in the empty house. My cousin sat with officers and repeated what he had seen. He could not tell them about the late-night visits, nor could he admit he had followed Anna, He told them what he could, that I had gone to buy computers, that I had been in an accident, that I had been discharged and then left again. Each lie he told to smooth the raw edges of truth dug deeper into his conscience. I watched his hands tremble as he signed forms and pointed at places on maps. He looked smaller each day, as though the weight of silence was slowly bending him. In the marketplace and the mosque, people speculated, rumors braided together. Some said I had fled, some claimed I had been taken by the forest, while others whispered that a restless spirit had taken justice into its own hands. I listened to each version, like a scholar reading a lost book. None of them held the full, terrible truth. Only the hollow beats of my phantom heartbeat knew what had really happened in that house. Days became weeks. The man who had shared Anna's bed, the one who fled the city in terror, became a rumor with no face. People swore they had seen him on a bus, then at a distant market. Others said he had changed his name and moved away. He was a ghost in the living world, a shadow fleeing the consequences of his deeds. I wanted to follow him, to make him feel the weight of loss I carried. But my rage had transformed into a colder thing, a desire that justice not be forgotten. Meanwhile, my cousin tried to rebuild the simple life. He returned to his students and corrected their tests. But his laughter never fully returned. He would sit by the window at night and stare at the empty road, and I would stand beside him unseen. Sometimes he would whisper my name, a prayer or a confession. I could not tell which. Those whispered words were the closest thing to conversation we had now. I answered him, in echoes only he could not hear, apologies, glances of forgiveness. The memory of shared meals. It felt cruel, both to watch and to be contained. Outside, life resumed its usual rhythms. Vendors hawked their wares, children chased balls, and the city busied itself with new stories. Yet beneath this bustle lay a thin, edgeless sorrow that spread like mist. People avoided speaking my name aloud. It felt like a fragile thing that might shatter, if handled roughly. Time has a strange way of changing what it touches. My first waves of anger had subsided into a quieter current, not forgiveness exactly, but a comprehension that even terrible acts come from complicated knots of fear, need, and failing hearts. I remembered the way Anna had smiled when she said yes the day I proposed. I remembered 1,000 small, ordinary gestures that had once felt sacred. Those memories did not excuse her choice, nor the violence she chose to bring upon me, but they complicated the story inside my head. I began to revisit earlier moments, the evening walks, the shared tea, the small arguments about money, the way my cousin straightened a picture frame when he thought no one was watching. Memory is a dangerous refuge. It softens edges, brings back color where there was previously only black. Standing in rooms I used to inhabit, I realized that love and betrayal are not discrete boxes, but overlapping circles that sometimes crush people caught in the same. One evening my cousin lit a small lamp and set it on the table. He prayed with careful, tired words and left a cup of tea untouched to cool. The ritual was not for show. It was a small, honest attempt to bridge the absent with the present. I drifted close as he spoke of forgiveness, not as a destination, but as a practice. His voice trembled, but he kept going. I had wanted, at times, to rage and tear and torment, and I had done what I felt I must. Yet, in watching him, I felt an unexpected tenderness for the living. I began to help in small, intangible ways. I would nudge a forgotten photograph, so my cousin would notice and remember to speak kindly of me to others. I would stir the curtains at dusk, so that he would get up and close them against the cold. These acts were nothing like the violent justice I had wrought, but they were gentler. They were a slow attempt at mending. The house, once a field of sharp memories, softened around the edges. Perhaps that is what changed me most. The realization that haunting can be an act of care as well as of pain. I could remain a specter of rage, or I could choose to remain near in a way that eased the burden of those still alive. As months passed, the city's memory of my story dulled like paint under dust. New gossip took hold. New tragedies pushed old ones to the back of people's minds. My cousin remarried years later, slowly reopening his heart and finding small pockets of joy. He never spoke ill of Anna or the man who fled. Those names became hushed things, like forbidden spices stored in a dark cabinet. When the moon was full, he would sometimes sit alone and touch the ring he had taken off long ago, whispering a name only he knew. I watched him build a life that honored the past without living inside it. Sometimes he would laugh aloud, and the sound would ripple like water through my empty ribs. When he died, old and kind, I felt a pang stronger than any phantom chill. Not for myself, but because the person who had kept my memory had gone. I lingered at his grave until the sun climbed, and birds began their careless chorus. Eventually, my presence thinned, not because I was forgotten, but because my reasons for staying had found gentle closure in the life he lived. On the last night, I remember, I stood by the window and let the wind move my hairless scalp. I thought of beginnings and endings, the small shop with humming computers, the first nervous proposal, the accident, the betrayal, the furious justice, and the slow days of undoing. I had come to believe that stories do not end with a single act. They evolve, bend, and sometimes stitch themselves back together in strange ways. I felt, strangely, a lightness, not complete peace, but a steadier quiet. My need to make the world tremble had passed. I had taken what I thought I needed, and watched the living attempt to heal themselves in the pieces I had left behind. In the thin morning, with a breath that was not a breath, I let go of the last hot ember inside me. I did not know if anything awaited beyond what I had been. I only knew that the house no longer needed my presence the way it once had. And then I vanished, as gently as smoke rising from an old warm fire. Not triumphant, not forgiven, simply gone. The city carried on. My story lived in the corners of a few minds, and in the creak of a certain floorboard, when the wind was right. Perhaps that is all any of us can ask for. To be remembered, to be understood a little, and then to be released.